Okay, hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining today again. Today I have an incredible guest with me. I will let her introduce herself, but I am really excited to hear about her three birth stories today. So, yeah, Nandi, who are you?
My name is Nandi. I'm a midwife and a doula and a hypnobirthing instructor and the mother of three as well. I have a 19-year-old girl and two boys, 11 and 7 years old.
Mm, yeah, you're incredible. You wear a lot of hats. So it's one of the, when I was in Portland, Oregon last year and moving here, I was like, before I was like, I need to find my people. I need to find my people. And you were one of the first ones. I was like, okay, she's doing it all. I need to like get in touch with her somehow. And you were going to be working at the same hospital as me too. So I was just like, I have to like just yeah connect. So I'm just yeah just honored to be in your presence and to hear all
Likewise.
your journey. So I would love to start with just kind of how you started thinking about having a baby and how that all happened with your first little one.
Yeah. Okay. I have to rethink everything. Um, so my first child was not a planned pregnancy. I was living in the United States at the time in New York, and I had quite recently moved out of the. I was living with my now daughter's dad, and I had moved in with my friend's mom, and can't remember how I started thinking that I was pregnant, but me and my daughter's dad were off and on again at the time, so we weren't really together. And so my friend Lisa suggested I take a pregnancy test. So I did, and it came back positive very, very quickly. Um, and I was quite shocked, and I also didn't know what to do next. So Lisa, being born and raised in the United States, had a plan. So she took me to Planned Parenthood, where I took another pregnancy test to like kind of confirm that this home test was correct. And the lady that I met, she asked, I remember she was filling out this form and she said, so what do you want to do? And I said, I want to keep the baby. And she was like really happy for me, which was a really positive experience, like a very nice first positive experience with healthcare and during pregnancy. And yeah, I knew that I wanted to have children. Um, but I wasn't sure at the time if my daughter's dad wanted to be involved, since it wasn't a planned pregnancy and we were 22 years old at the time. Um, and after that, which I didn't understand at the time, but I understand now. I got registered with a midwife there, and I got my checkups with a midwife, and I was supposed to give birth at Stony Brook, which was a midwifery-led like unit. And I didn't understand all this. I'm like, what is the big deal? Because I came from Sweden with where like midwives deliver babies. Like I didn't understand why people were like so ooh. And I remember like my the grandmother of my daughter was a little bit like, oh, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, I think, like we were talking about the whole midwifery thing, like that midwives would be. I didn't understand the big deal, the conversation about it. But for one of my checkups, I think it must have been similar to what we do in Sweden, around, what is it? Is it the first ultrasound where they check for Down syndrome?
Mm.
So I did all, I didn't know what I was agreed to, but I got all the blood work done. And one of the tests came back with a very high probability of Down syndrome. It was just blood work, it was no sonogram. So I the next day I had to go and get a sonogram. And I had a conversation with my now very close friend Michelle, who lives in San Francisco and is a nurse. And I think she was a pediatric nurse at the time. So we started talking about Down syndrome, and she's like, "I love Down syndrome babies," and She gave me very positive feeling about it. But in those 24 hours to like from this blood test to the ultrasound, or it was probably shorter, I started realizing that I couldn't stay in the United States and be pregnant because I didn't have health care. I was like on Medicaid. I was working off the books. I was, didn't have a place of my own to live. Like there were so many things that were not ideal for having a child. So I went to this sonogram with my friend's mom, Lisa's mom, Marilyn,
Mm.
which was also really sweet. She didn't have any grandchildren at the time, so this was like her little introduction into that. And they realized that the pregnancy was dated differently than they thought. So how they explained it was like there's levels depending on which week of gestation you are, and the number is different when you combine it with the gestational week. So when they dated the pregnancy, they realized that the risk for Down syndrome was very, very low. And I can't remember the numbers at all anymore. But yeah, so they thought that it wasn't an elevated risk. And there somewhere I decided to move back to Sweden. Um, so not so much to be close to my family, which a lot of people probably would think. I was more thinking about like the practical things in the healthcare system. So I moved
Mm.
back to Sweden when I was about 20 weeks, and I didn't tell the daughter, my daughter's dad, that I wasn't coming back because I was kind of scared that he was going to stop me. And my visa also was running out, so I had to leave. I was there on a student visa because I had been to nail school, so like I had a year visa only.
So he did come around and want the baby, like he wanted to be involved in some, or
Um,
was it still kind of unclear at that point?
he was happy, and he did go to the appointment with me with the Down syndrome, not the sonogram, of course, but the other appointment before that. I remember that. Um, he was very shocked when I told him about the pregnancy. I don't think he was really excited, but I think he also kind of like somehow, I think also pressure from his family, and like I don't think they would have let him not be involved.
Mm.
So I think that played into it as well.
Mm.
Um, but our our relationship was a really bad relationship. It was very abusive, and I needed to get out of there. So it was really good that I left. I don't think I wouldn't have been the person I am today, but I also wouldn't have been the mother I was able to be to my daughter.
Mm.
So I came back to Sweden and I moved into my sister's apartment with her because she had just separated from her boyfriend. So we were, my sister's 9 years older than me. She didn't have any kids at the time. So we were like sharing her big bed, and yeah, she followed me through the whole pregnancy. And I think about 2 weeks before my due date, I moved into my own apartment. So my whole like my pregnancy companion has was my sister.
2 days before your due date, you'd make a big move.
No,
Amazing.
not 2 weeks, 2 weeks before.
Oh, 2 weeks before. Yeah, that's still intense.
Well, um, yeah, I also didn't have a lot of things to move, to be honest. Like I'd been living everywhere. Like I didn't have furniture. Like it was a very scarce apartment. I inherited a couch from my sister. I got the bed from my parents' house. Like they were there wasn't a lot of things, but it was fine.
Mm.
And my sister, during the time, I read a lot of pregnancy books because I was unemployed. So I tried to find a job, but the more you show, I was already 20 something, 20 weeks when I arrived in Sweden, and you just get bigger and bigger. Like who is really going to give you a job?
Mm.
So I spent a lot of time at home reading pregnancy books, and was so amazed by like everything that had to do do with pregnancy. I started thinking, oh, I want to become a nurse. And then I was like, no, I want to become a midwife. So that's actually how it started. And it was like my daughter's pregnancy that inspired me to go down this path.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, so my sister was with me through the whole thing. She was also with me through the birth. So she was like my doula.
Oh,
So
that's
we went to prenatal course together as well. It was like like an evening. So it was her and I and all these, heterosexual couples.
beautiful.
And I was also, I mean, people always think I'm younger than I am. So people in general, and then back then as well. So I think people thought that I was younger than I was as well. Um, and yeah, we had planned for my sister to be there for the birth and also take the first. So in Sweden, you get 10 days connected to when the baby's born. And usually it's the dad that takes those days off and gets money from the government. But my sister had planned to take those 10 days so she could be home with me and help me and
Mhm.
yeah, see. Uh, and my sister actually gave me the best breastfeeding advice that I ever got. And she didn't have kids at the time, but she had friends that had kids. So she said, prepare for breastfeeding to be really painful.
Mm.
And I think if nobody had told me that, I would have probably not continued to breastfeed. So I'm really happy that she was smart enough to give me that advice.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so on at the end of my pregnancy, I measured quite small at the midwife. So she sent me to do a sonogram at the hospital and a CTG, and everything looked fine. And then it was a little back and forth if they were going to induce me or not. And one doctor said, next time you're coming, you're going to be induced, and then we'll come with all our stuff. And they said, no, everything's fine. We don't need to induce you today. So it was a little back and forth. And then I went to a checkup on my due date, which was Friday, the 13th of January. And the doctor that I met that day said, okay, your baby measures a little small, and we don't want to wait over the weekend to see what happens better. We'd start the induction now. It might also take a couple of days for you to be in labor and so on. So we're going to induce you today. And I wasn't prepared for that. My sister was at work. I think my dad even took me to this appointment. I don't think he was in the appointment with me, but I just have this memory of us driving to pick up my sister. Um, so we prepared for a long weekend in the hospital because that's what they told us. It can take days when you induce, and your
Mm.
cervix is not mature, and so that's what we prepared for. This is '06, so no cell phones were allowed in the hospital. And my sister brought like a big CD player, like huge. And we brought CDs, and she had like several, I think she had like 2 or 3 books with her. We came with our little trolley bags. Like we were ready to, this is a weekend thing.
We're gonna party.
Yeah, no, but we were like, we're just going to sit here and do nothing for hours and hours. So before I went home to get all my stuff and my sister, the doctor had done a vaginal exam. And I'm guessing, thinking back, they probably did a sweep. And I'm not sure if they did and didn't tell me or if I just don't remember it. But I
Mm.
started having a little bit of like similar to menstrual cramping. So when we came back to the hospital, because my cervix was very, I don't know, like the status of it at all, but they decided they were going to put, I don't know what that's called in English actually. It's
The
like
fold, the fold,
sorry?
Like a Foley catheter, like a little balloon?
No.
Oh,
So it's like a tampon with
oh,
hormone.
it's Cervidil. Yeah.
What is it called?
Called Cervidil. It's kind of
So,
like misoprostol, but you can like take it out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So back, it's what I've seen in the hospitals is not what was used back then. Then it was really like almost like a tampon with a gel on it. So it was
Yeah.
quite different from what I've used now working as a midwife.
It's
Uh,
very expensive. They use it in the States in some hospitals still, but it's more expensive. So they go more with the misoprostol cytotec option
oh,
there. But it was a very effective, but it was also you could take it away if you get too many contractions. But it was, price thing
always.
always.
Like not what works the best or it's always money. Money rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so we'd been to a checkup before where my sister was with me, and then she knew I think he was not he might have been doing his he was not done with being a doctor. I don't think he was in training, but he was maybe specializing in obstetrics or something. And they had gone to the same like middle school or something together. So when we were there for a checkup before, he was like really excited to see my sister. So when I came in again, he asked to be my doctor. And I generally don't like male doctors and will not choose a male doctor. But since I'd met him before and he was like really like almost friends with my sister, I was like, okay, I'll let this one pass. Uh, I don't know if that was a good or bad choice, but hey. But I remember that clearly. Like I was like, but then I was like, okay, like because he really like he's like, please, can I do this? Can I put the this tampon in? So we did that, and yeah, so we just waited. My sister, I don't know what she was doing, reading a book or something. Quite quickly, we had the radio on, and quite quickly, I started getting like surges. And um, the funny thing is, I always have to add this to the birth story, but the funny thing is, the last song I heard before like surges took over was Vi drar till Malmö, and I
Oh
lived in Uppsala at the time. So it's
no.
yes, so that's the last thing I remember hearing before the surges took over, and I didn't hear the music that was on in the background. So I don't know. That was just for foreshadowing what would come a couple years down the road. So I got quite intense surgeries right away. I had eaten like an apple, and my sister has this phobia about throwing up. So the only thing she's like, this you have to put this in your birth plan. That if I throw up, I need to be able to leave the like if you throw up, you need to be able to leave the room. So the staff knew about it. So when I started getting nauseous, my sister just bolted out through the door, which was fine. But I knew that like this is how it's going to be. So I threw up. Um, I think maybe before that we actually left the room to go eat something, and that's when the surgery started. I remember I started like sitting down, like um, crouching down every time the surge came, and I went to the bathroom several times, and yeah. So then we went back to the room, and then I threw up, and then it just kind of like took over. It got very intense very quickly. So they actually gave me Bricanyl
Hmm.
to like slow down the surges because I really felt like I didn't have a break. I just felt like they were coming, coming, coming all the time. And we were not in the delivery ward at the time. We were in the postnatal ward because I mean, it was supposed to take the whole weekend.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I don't know how many hours we spent there, not very long until they wheeled us to the delivery ward. And I remember there was an elevator, and in my head it's going down, but I don't know if that's really the true situation. Um, and in the downstairs in the delivery ward, they connected me to the CTG, and I was connected with cords all the time. They gave me Bricanyl 3 times. So twice as a pill and once as an IV because I had so many surges. They were just coming back to back to back to back to back. They removed this tampon and artificially ruptured my membranes as well when I was in the delivery ward.
Wow. You
Um,
must have been like dilated. Uh, I mean, but you don't remember maybe
I
what
don't remember the details,
broke
but
the.
I think I have the chart, but I haven't looked at it for years. But yeah, they did check, but I think actually, I don't think I think she just removed the tampon because it was so intense, like,
Mm,
and I couldn't move. I was literally sitting in this bed with the back was raised a little bit. So between the surges, I would lean back and then I would sit up and breathe. And then I would lean back and I would sit up and breathe. And I had the TNS machine,
oh,
uh, and and there it wasn't as good as the ones that we have nowadays either. So it had a little like you had to manually like adjust it to get it, and like you had there was a lot of things going on, like, and I had to press the thing and then I had to manually just that's
not a great description.
no, it wasn't great, but it was also very distracting. And I remember my sister still tells this story where I was like going through surges, and in the middle of a surge, I look up and I say, "I have the same lamp in my kitchen," and it was like an IKEA lamp hanging there. And I remember that I had been thinking about this for probably like I don't know a long time, but I didn't have the energy to say it. Uh, so
Important detail.
sorry.
It's an
Important.
important
Yes,
detail. You
at the
needed to
time it was
communicate.
like I need to say this for some reason. It made total sense then. And I had decided beforehand that I didn't want an epidural. I wanted to like go without as much medication as possible. It was just also how I am as a person. I'm not very fond of be altered states and things like that. So the gas didn't sound very interesting to me. I felt like none of the medication really felt interesting to me. And we had done the prenatal course, and I knew that breathing was really helpful. And then I had the TNS, which was somewhat
So,
helpful. Uh, I think maybe I think maybe I got uh, and acupuncture as well, but I'm not sure. I
um,
think so, but I think it didn't. I think, yeah, they did. They put him here, but I didn't think it helped at all. Um, and my whole like what I would do during the surges, what I would breathe and I would think epidural, 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 epidural. And then when it was over, I was like, no epidural. And then I would get a surge again. I would be like epidural, epidural, epidural. But I never said it. I never asked for an epidural. But it was like a mantra. I don't know if it was like I know that it's there in case I feel like I can't handle it.
mm,
Um, I was, like I said, I was connected to the CTG machine with cords the entire time. So every time I had to go to the bathroom, my sister had to pull them out, and she would hang the whole thing around my neck, and I had the TNS machine, had all these cords. And my sister's worked with like disabled people, so she's really good at like helping. So she helped me to the bathroom. There was no like she has no problems with the bodily fluids if it's not throw up. So none of the other things was a problem. So and she was really supportive. She reminded me to breathe, and she was like really, yeah, she was a really good support person to have.
mm,
Uh, at one point, one of the midwives came in and she asked me that my daughter's grandmother had called the hospital because again this was 2006. You are not allowed to have cell phones, and like everything was you were disconnected from the outer world when you were in the hospital. So I had told them that I was going to go and be induced, and then they hadn't heard from me. So she had somehow figured out how to call the hospital in Uppsala, which is also quite impressive at that time.
uh-huh.
And so the midwife came in and she said, I got a phone call from the United States. Am I allowed to tell them that you're here? And she's asking she's asking how everything is going. Am I allowed to give them a status update? And for me, it felt like I went, that I nodded. But then my sister's like, "Is it okay?" And I was like, "But I already answered this." And my sister said afterwards, she's like, "You didn't move." And I was like, "No, but I nodded." She's like, "No, you didn't." And she's like, "You nodded when I asked you." So I thought that was so interesting how I felt like I had really expressed, I've answered the question, but from the outside, nobody saw. And I think about this a lot with birth when women say, "Sorry for screaming afterwards." And I'm like, "You didn't scream." That the feeling in the body can be so different than what we see on the outside. And that was a really good example of that. Like I'm like, if you, I could have sworn that I nodded. But my
Uh-huh.
sister's like, "No, you didn't move anything."
Just stared. Wow,
Just,
no, it's so true. It's so true. Altered state.
yeah, it's something else.
Um,
So at that time, so I think I got they started the induction around 4 in the afternoon. I don't know when I got into the delivery ward, but my sister started getting tired. And she's also realized that the camera, we had a digital camera with us, was upstairs in the postnatal ward. So she said, "Can I call?" My friend was visiting. We're not friends anymore, but she actually lived in Malmö and she was visiting. So she said, "Can I call her? Maybe she can come to the hospital because I'm really tired." Because she had gotten up early and got to work. It was a Friday. It was a regular day for her, the end of the week. Like she didn't know that this was what she was going to do. So my sister left, and then the midwife and the assistant nurse stayed with me. And I was still sitting in the bed, and then I started going, ugh! And the midwife was like, "We need to put you in the other bed and check you." And I was like, for me in my head, I'm like moving right now. Are they crazy? Like, I don't want, like, I just want to sit here. And they were like, "No, we need to move you to the like the birth bed," which was, it was right next to the bed that I was in. So I moved, and they checked me, and yeah, they're like, "Yeah, this baby is coming soon," and they're like, "You need to get into a different position," and because I was sitting like this, and I was like, "Can I not just sit?" And like, you know how that you don't have a logical mind when you're in labor, like, and you're not supposed to, but for me it made sense. I want to sit. Like, I don't want to move. I don't want to get into a different position. Like, let this baby come, this is where I am. And I'm like, "No, this is not going to work. Like, baby can't come out if you're sitting," because I was like really like almost like sitting on a chair. So somehow they, and I remember how also how not safe I felt when my sister left. Like,
mm,
she was really my safety and my like comfort. So when she left, I didn't feel as calm anymore. And I was even though the staff was really nice, I didn't know them. I didn't feel as safe with them. So it was also like I just wanted my sister to come back. So my sister came back, and she had called my friend, and so they put me on my knees and raised the back of the bed, and I started pushing. And I also remember that the assistant nurse, she put her hand on me like this, like just placed it, and I remember how annoying I felt that was. Like, it was just this light touch, and I was like, "Oh, just stop!" Like in my head, I was like, "Can she stop touching me? Can she stop touching me?" Like, it was almost a worse feeling. It was just, and it was not because it was too much. I felt like it was too little. Like, it
mhm.
was too light. I wanted it to be more of a firm touch, and she has just this like. So I think about that sometimes too, when because I have a tendency to give a quite light touch. That sometimes that is not so nice. It's better to give like a firm touch. With babies, I'm really firm, but with adults, sometimes I'm a little too like soft. So I was on my knees, and I started pushing, and it took a while because it was the first child, right? And at some point, my friend came, and she described it as, she's like, because I have a tattoo, which is like a, a tramp stamp in that position. So she's like, "I walked into the room and I see this bum, but then I saw your tattoo, so I knew it was you, and I was in the right room." It would have been bad if it was someone else. So
Great.
she came in. I can't really remember. Like, I remember looking up, and she was there. And then I was pushing and I kept on like arching my back.
Mm,
And they kept on telling me to move, push forward. And I was like, no, I can't. Like, it's not me. My body's doing it.
mm,
Um, and of course, I didn't know then what I know now. But it's also so interesting to have experienced that and now know what that actually, why it happens. And I was just really following my body, like really, my body just took over. There was no um, thoughts and anything. It was really just like a physical thing. Um, right before, like, I think it was 5 minutes to midnight, they say the baby's not going to be born today. It will be after midnight. And I was like, yes, not Friday the 13th.
oh my gosh. That's right. You're still in the same day. That's insane how fast that went.
Yeah, yeah, it went extremely fast. And then my at some point they also say, "Oh, we see some dark hair," and then they were like joking, "Oh, well, we were strange if it was light hair," and I was like, "That's stupid." Like I never say stuff like that. I sometimes say I see hair
Mm,
to
exactly.
encourage, but I don't say comments like that. It's like one, it's those things when you've heard it yourself, how they really trigger you, and
Mm,
how in that moment you wish that it wasn't said because it's still remember it. It's almost 20 years ago.
mm,
And then my daughter was born, and it was like the craziest thing because like I don't remember the ring of fire. I remember that she put the warm wet towels, and I didn't know anything about it. I hadn't put it in as a request in my birth plan or anything. And after she was born, somehow they just like quickly got me on my back.
mm.
It's, I remember even afterwards, like looking at the pictures, I was like, how did I end up on my back? Because I was on my knees. Like I don't know how I they turned me so quickly. And like the first pictures I have was my daughter like this, and I have like a cold wet towel here, and my hair is like everywhere, and I look completely done, you know. Um, and I always laugh at that because like my friend in the States, when she had her child a year later, she had like straightened her hair and had an epidural. So when she has her first picture, she looks like so beautiful. And I'm like, put them next to each other. We didn't have the same type of experience.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, no, I can't remember like really seeing my daughter for the first time. I just like remember she was there. My sister cut the cord,
Mm.
and I have pictures of that. They were, considering it was 2006, they actually did a pretty good job with taking pictures. They took a couple of pictures here and there. Um, and then one thing that I wish I would have done is that I wish I would have looked at the placenta because
Mm.
they asked me, and I was like, no.
Well, being 22 years old too, I mean, like you just know what you don't know.
Yeah, no, no, but I'm like, in hindsight, I'm like, it's too bad that I didn't see her placenta because I didn't see the placenta of my second child either. So it's just one of those things where, like, at least this was a vaginal birth and I could have. Um, and I think I got one stitch. So that was also really, really easy. Uh, in my head, I went to the bathroom and showered, and then I was breastfeeding. But it doesn't make sense for. So I think it's just like you lose track. The timeline gets blurred with all those hormones. I'm not sure how everything went. The funny thing is actually during pregnancy, I'd always, not always, but when I was younger, I thought I didn't want to breastfeed. And quite early in pregnancy, I was like, no, I want to breastfeed. It was something that happened with the pregnancy that actually made me want to breastfeed. And I think I was so I've written about my birth story, and I think I've written about my breastfeeding story for my daughter. And I think one of the things that the reason why I didn't want to breastfeed, I think I was still getting used to my adult body. Like I was 22 years old. I'd had my period for like roughly 10 years at the time. Like I was still quite young. So I think before then, my idea, like my thought of somebody like touching my breast and like having it, like it was just weird. But the pregnancy just like, it was like night and day. It was amazing.
Oh.
So I did breastfeed, and I got help with that. And then like I stayed, I think we stayed 2 nights. She was a little small, but not as small as they had anticipated. And she was never given formula in the hospital.
Mm.
Uh, so she was born the night to Saturday, and I think we went home on the Sunday. And on Monday, the midwife from BB på väg, or which is BB hemma here in Malmö now, came and she helped me breastfeed and she took the PKU test as I was breastfeeding, laying down in my bed. And she was actually the one that like saved my breastfeeding, I would say, because I was struggling. My daughter weighed 2.8 kilos, so she was quite small. So I was
Mm.
struggling sitting up and holding her and pillows and trying to figure everything out. And then she had a tiny mouth. So my nipples were just bleeding. But laying down helped me actually get breastfeeding to work. So over my entire parenthood, I've always said like the best thing with my birth story was that midwife that came to my house and helped me with the breastfeeding. And now we have it here in Malmö, but we didn't have it for a very long time. And I've always said that like that was life changing for me.
Mm.
Um, One thing that I regret, or that I think is sad that she did though, was that she thought my daughter had a little jaundice. And yes, you can look at the pictures, she's a little has a yellow tint to her skin, but she's recommended me to give her some formula. So that means that she hasn't been fully breastfed because I gave her, I don't know, formula on a teaspoon a couple of times. So it's not, I didn't give her a lot, but that's what she recommended, which I think was quite sad. And she also, her weight gain was like when we went back to the hospital, I think when she was 5 days old, she had already turned in weight. So that was probably not necessary.
Mm.
Um, But other than that, like I had a really positive birth experience. I felt really strong afterwards. I felt, you know how it is like you're going to experience this soon.
Yeah.
It's like you are the group that hasn't given birth, the women that haven't given birth, and then all of a sudden you're in like the women that have given birth. And I think also because I was quite young, it was like, wow, I've done that thing. I did the thing that everybody talks about, that there's this like big thing. Um, so that gave me a lot of like strength and self-esteem, and yeah, it was just amazing. Like it was one of those things that I would look back and be like, oh, when life got hard, I'm like, I'm given birth. I pushed a whole human out. I can do this, you know?
Yes. I mean, just being 22 years old too and doing that at that age, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, just how you were feeling and that you were empowered the whole time and that you did it unmedicated and that your sister was there. Like it was just all these divine interventions, like that, just like, oh, she didn't come on the 13th, she came on the 14th, and it just all lined up so beautifully for
It
you.
was also full moon, which I didn't know at the time.
Oh my gosh. It was just like, it sounds like a dream. Like, even
Uh,
with sure it was hard and lots of emotions, but I can just like see how empowering that must have been as a 22-year-old, having done that and having that power so young. Like that
I
just
think
makes
also like coming out of such a unhealthy relationship with her dad.
you.
Um, Becoming a mom has also made me prioritize myself differently. And I think, I mean, there's so many things I'm grateful for when becoming a mom, especially to my daughter, because she really shifted my perspective on so many things. But just
Mm,
like, yeah, feeling empowered, and also the women that empowered me. So it wasn't just from within, it was also the support I had. Like the midwife I had when I went in Sweden, she said, "Oh, the best age to give birth is 20. You'll be fine." Like she encouraged me. She put me in touch with a group for single moms. There was a really good counselor there. She encouraged me and she supported me all through pregnancy and afterwards. My sister was with me the entire time. The midwives that were the midwife that was there at the birth, she was also really encouraging. And so I had all these women that like came in and like poured into me. And
mm,
it's like looking back, I mean, this is what I'm like makes me emotional. But I'm looking back and this is why I became a midwife. This is why I do what I do now, because like if my experience would have been negative and if they hadn't held me like they did, like if my sister hadn't supported me, if the midwives hadn't showed me so much respect and care, it would have been a really maybe traumatizing or really tough experience. And I would probably not have chosen this path.
mm.
So this was a really, yeah, profound experience on so many levels.
It is truly, it's so impactful what people say to you, how they touch you, all these things in birth and how it changes you forever. And I'm so grateful to all those women as well because like if you're one of those people that there's a certain energy about you that, you're kind of pulled towards you because you have that passion and you have that sense of care and know how important that is of like you being in that room and you know that this person's going to remember you forever and you can just say one little thing like when she came to your house like and just helped you with that one thing that
Mm.
it stays with you forever and you have the ability to change someone's life forever and it's such an honor and yeah
It
we
is.
birth world love you you're amazing.
No, but I really think um, it's such a blessing to be able to do what I do, to be honest. Like it's not something I take for granted. Um, and just started doing planned cesareans, and it's just like being in that room when somebody's born. Like it's crazy,
It is.
regardless of if it's a vaginal birth or a C-section. It's just it's I love how like I've worked with midwives. I have had my mentor when I was in the delivery ward. She has been a midwife for I think close to 30 years. And I remember her coming out of a birth when she was the second midwife in. So she's like, I just sat on a chair and she's like, almost like she had this like joy about it. She's like, it's so beautiful birth. And I'm like,
Yeah.
if somebody who's worked in birth with birth this long can still be so amazed and so passionate about it, I'm like, that's what I want. Like,
Mm,
who doesn't want a midwife like that, that has all the experience but still has the love and the passion and can still see the amazement it is to see another person being born, you know?
mm,
So, yeah, no, there's there's so many things about this that I think is super special, but it's yeah, it's also what I was given and what people have. Yeah, my third midwife birth midwife was also a profound experience for who I am as midwife today. So
uh,
it's all connected. I can't like
all
think
connected.
about it separately.
Of course. Okay, well, so that's an incredible story with your first baby that just giving you all that strength. So now I don't know how many years go by and now you're planning for a second baby. Like how is the thought process happening? Yeah, how was that journey?
So um I was a single mom with my daughter for a long time. And I kind of had accepted that I wasn't going to have any more kids. Not that I was too old because I had her quite young, but it was just like didn't meet anybody. And so I had come to a point that where I accepted that I wasn't going to have any more kids. She kept on saying she wanted a little brother. But I
Oh
was
no.
like, yeah. And I considered going down the road doing an insemination with donated sperm, but then I decided it didn't feel right for that child because my daughter then has a dad and that child wouldn't have a dad, and I didn't feel right. So then I finally met somebody, so my ex, and we had a long distance relationship, and so our first child was very planned. We talked about it for a while. I got pregnant quite quickly. He hadn't even moved to Sweden yet. So I went through that. This was the second pregnancy I went through by myself, which was quite hard. And I actually at some points I didn't know if he was going to come. I didn't know if he's going to make it because of the visa process and all of that. So it was not always the easiest pregnancy. And I had already had the first pregnancy where it was, quite rough to be by yourself. And there are all these couples. And now I was like, I planned this pregnancy with somebody and he's not here. But he arrived, I think it was 8 days before the due date.
Oh my gosh. Just on time.
Yeah, and that was huge. Um, so I had planned, by then I had done my doula training. So I had planned with Sanna, who did the doula training, for her to be the doula as well, partly because I trusted her and we had a relationship already, but I also wanted somebody there for my then partner because, I mean, he just arrived in Sweden. So I can't really remember all the details, but we we had borrowed a birth pool because I had a bathtub and I was kind of like, do I want to have a hospital birth? Do I want to have unassisted birth? Was I was thinking at the time, like, what do I want? Um, and then the due date came and went, and my ex was kind of like, I'm not ready for, like, because this is his first child. So he's like, no, I'm not ready for this right now. Like, of course, he has made a big move to a new country, and now he's going to also become a dad. He was like, can we wait until September? And I'm like, no, we can't wait. This was May.
What?
So I was like, no. The due date came and went. I think another week passed, and then I was just sitting in the bed, and and there was like a little gush of water, and I was like, okay. So I went to the bathroom, and then I felt the baby move, and more water came. So I put on a pad, and I kind of just waited, and um, never in. I had no thought ever during this time to call the hospital. Like there was no thought in my head that I need to call the hospital for anything.
Mm.
So I'm waiting. We go to bed. Like this was at 1 o'clock, I think, in the afternoon. We go to bed that night. I'm sleeping on like like towels because there's just water coming, and I'm just waiting. I'm like, the surgeons are gonna come eventually. Like I was just, I wasn't worried. I was just waiting. So in the morning, I started feeling a little surges. I sat in the bathtub with the shower. Um, and then I was like, yeah, you should call the doula. So he called the doula and she was on her way. And then when she arrived, I was in the bed with under two blankets eating ice pop. And she's like, have you checked your temperature? And I was like, no. And then she's like, maybe you should check your temperature. So it turned out I had a fever. So she like found the recommendations when it was, when you have ruptured membranes. And she's like, it says that you should get antibiotics if it's been more than 18 hours. I think you should call the hospital. So I called the hospital in Lund because I really didn't want to give birth in Malmö because I worked there at the time. And the midwife that I talked to was like, "Are you sure it's amniotic fluid?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, I was such a stupid. She's like, "Why didn't you call earlier?" I'm like, "For what?" Like, because for me, I'm like, I don't need you guys for anything. Like, why am I calling you for what? Like, there was no thought in my head that I needed to talk to them. That it just there wasn't none. So I took paracetamol, and then the surges kind of went away, and I was walking around. I remember I was doing the dishes and things like that. And they said you have to come in to the hospital. So we took our time, we stopped at the burger place on the way and got food from my ex because he hadn't eaten. And we drove to the hospital in Lund, and they connected the CTG, and I think I put in my birth preferences that I wanted the cordless ones because I knew how limited I felt by the cords the first birth. So they got the cordless ones, and I was feeling fine. I didn't really have any surges. Um, and they put in an IV, they gave me antibiotics, and then the midwife wanted to do a vaginal exam, and I didn't like her because she was like, I don't know, she felt very tired or unhappy or like, I don't know. I was like, and I think it was around noon. So I knew that the shift was going to change soon. And because I'd worked in the delivery ward as an assistant nurse, so I knew that midwives sometimes want to do their own vaginal exams. So I was like, you know what? Let's wait till the evening stuff comes. And she's like, okay. So I just waited until the evening stuff came. And then she did a vaginal exam, and she said the baby's head wasn't engaged, the cervix wasn't dilated at all, and the CTG, like his heart rate was elevated. So I was like, okay. So we're sitting there waiting to hear more. The midwife was like, and this midwife was really good. So I'm glad I waited for her because she also sat down and went through my birth preferences, and we talked about some of the things that I had written in there. And then she went out. She's like, I gotta go talk to the doctor or whatever. And then we're sitting there, and then the assistant nurse comes in, and she's like, what time did you last eat? And I was like, I ate a Snickers bar at like 11. And she's like, yeah, you're not allowed to eat or drink. And I was like, why? And then I knew because I've worked in healthcare for long enough. I didn't work in the postnatal ward at this time. I had worked in neonatal care. So I'd been in the building and I worked in the delivery ward as an assistant nurse when I was studying my nursing, but I hadn't worked in the postnatal ward. So I started crying because I was like, okay, it's going to be a C-section. Like I knew right away. And this, so that when she said, like, when I was like, why? She's like, wait for the doctor. And then she left. And I was like, okay. So that was a really bad, this is what I always say is the worst way to find out I was having a C-section. 5 minutes later, the doctor came in. They could have waited. The doctor could have given me that news. There was no reason for her to come in and do what she did. And that ruined a lot of the experience for me. So when the doctor came in, I was already in tears. I was already upset, and I was so emotional. And I was so happy that I had the doula, that I had Sanna with me to ask the questions I couldn't at the time, because I was so emotional I couldn't think straight. So she asked, she's like, "What if we wait and give another dose of antibiotics? Why can't we induce?" And they explained it as that his heart rate was so elevated that they thought he wouldn't be able to handle an induction. So they thought that a cesarean section would be better. So I had to like, and during this pregnancy, I never stopped to think about a cesarean section because I had had a previous vaginal birth. During that pregnancy, I worried about a C-section sometimes. But during this pregnancy, it had never crossed my mind because I had given birth already. I knew what was going to happen. So I was like, it wasn't there. But I had like at least I thought of some good things. Like I had written in my birth preferences, like because I had worked in neonatal care and I knew how important skin to skin was. So I put like if I can't be with the baby, I want my partner to have the baby skin to skin. I'd slept with a blanket that we had prepared for the baby. I also took the shirt that I was wearing and put it in the bassinet so the baby would have my scent when he was born. Um, and yeah, then they like prepared me for surgery when it was a very, calm. It was nothing stressful and it wasn't an emergency. But it was very unplanned. So I arrive in the surgery ward and I'm crying and crying. I'm like, I think now I'm more okay with crying in front of people. Then I wasn't, but I was like, there was no, like, I was so upset. I think there was a lot of things, but I had had the whole pregnancy by myself. So I had looked forward to sharing the birth experience with my then partner. So I think there was so many emotions connected to that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be separated from my baby. And they were like, oh, this is going to go well. Don't worry. And I'm like, I just don't want to be away from my baby. Like that was my main concern. So they gave me the anesthesia and, put up the surgical cloth and then did the surgery. Uh, and it was a terrible experience. And it was not a terrible experience because of anything they really did. It was just, it was so, it was almost like I wasn't there. I didn't feel human anymore because there's so much going on around you and they don't talk to you.
Mm,
So luckily, I had a really good, I think she must have been the anesthetic nurse. She
mm,
talked to me. So at one point, I'm like, I don't know if I'm having a panic attack or what's going on, but I can't breathe. And she's like, no, 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 it's the anesthesia. Let me give you some oxygen. You're fine. Like she really was there. Like I remember just looking up at her and she was always there, and she was the one who kind of calmed me down. My ex was also like really supportive, but of course it was also like a lot for him.
mm,
Um, and I mean, I don't know how detailed that should be, but there's one point in surgery where you move a lot, like they're moving the body, they're pulling, and that was a really horrible feeling because you feel like you're shaking, you can't control anything. I remember my ex was like holding down my arm because I was like, what's going on? It was very
mm.
freaky. And then our son was born and he screamed right away. So my ex stood up and looked over the surgery and he was like, my son. And they were like, they're trying to push him. But the thing is, he's not squeamish at all. Like, he doesn't mind blood or so. Like, so for
Okay.
him, it was like, afterwards, he's like, oh, I've seen the insides of your body. Like, for him, it wasn't like a traumatic experience at all. He was just amazed by the whole thing. Like, he thought it was really cool.
Mm.
So he was like, oh, wow. And then he looked down, he's like, he has really big balls. Like, he was like super And I just heard him crying, crying, crying. So I knew he was good. And then they just rushed him out. So I didn't see him.
Oh,
Um, and I said I didn't want the vitamin K shot. I put it in my birth preferences. And I'm laying there and they're still doing the surgery. And then the neonatal nurse comes in and she's like, why don't you want the vitamin K shot? And she started asking me all these questions about it. And I like answered her and she's like, maybe the doctor might want to come talk to you. And at the end I said, like, I'm a nurse, I know what I have chosen. And I just like looked away because I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't, like, I was stuck. And this was before I'd even seen my son.
mm,
So it felt like forever. I could hear him crying the entire time, but I was just like, I looked up at this the anesthetic nurse, and I was like, why are they not bringing him? And she's like, but he's fine. You can hear that he's fine. And I'm like, yeah, but why are they not bringing him? Like, to me, I'm like, if it's fine, like, why is he there? Why is he not here? So when they finally brought him, and my doula wasn't allowed to the surgery, but she stayed and waited in the delivery ward, and she had told me, like, when you see the baby, take mental pictures of him. So when you're in the postnatal ward, like in the post-op ward, you have memories of what he looks like, so you can focus on that. So I think that advice is why I remember exactly what he looked like when I saw him. So they came in, and this is also like so sad. This is 11 years ago, so it's a while, but it's still like not great. Um, they came in with him wrapped up in towels. All I could see was like a little round face, and his one eye was closed because it was so bright. So he was like, trying to look up, and they put him. really close to my face. So I couldn't see him. I could like kiss him, but I couldn't see what he looked like. So I'm like, put him further away so I can see him. Then they moved him down a little bit so I could actually see him. I could kiss him. It was very short. There was no skin to skin. There was no, nothing. It was very like quick. And then I mean, for me, it felt like 2 minutes. Maybe it was five, but it wasn't like 15. Like it was a very short period of time where he was actually there. And then they said, it's too cold for him here. We need to take him downstairs. So they took him and his dad downstairs, and I was just laying there. And I remember the doctor saying it smells like an infection, but this was never really told to me. This is, I heard the doctor say about like when she was stitching me up. And then by the wall to my left, there are all these people sitting on chairs. I'm guessing now, like thinking back, maybe they were students or something. So I turn and I was like, because, again, the feeling of like I'm here, but nobody sees me. And I was like, how long will I be in the post op ward? And somebody goes, 5 hours. And I'm like, 5 hours? Like to me, I'm like, I can't be away from my baby for 5 hours. Like I started feeling like I was going to freak out. So I was like, okay, 5 hours. How, like, so as soon as I got to the post op ward, I asked the nurse, I'm like, how long do I have to be here? And she's like, as soon as you can move your feet. So I lay there and I was constantly trying to move my feet. As soon as I can move my feet, I press the call button and I'm like, look, I can move my feet. I just want to get to my baby. She's like, yes, yes, yes. And then she had to call some transport person, and that felt like it also took forever, but I think it might have been half an hour. So when I get wheeled into the room in the postnatal ward, the room is completely empty because I was in the bed, and against the wall is my ex sitting by himself, no baby. And I'm like, "Where's the baby?" And he's like, "They took him to check something." And I was like, "What do you mean? Is something wrong?" And he's like, "I don't think so." Like I was like, it was like just this crazy thing. I'm like, I'm going to see my baby, and now there's no baby.
Oh.
Luckily, like within a minute or two, they came in with him, and they had done like these post C-section checkups. Why they didn't bring his dad is for me like craziness, but
Mm.
yeah, that's what they did because I like working with this myself. I'm like, you wouldn't do that. You don't leave the parent. You bring the parent. Like, why would you leave him there? It, yeah, it didn't make sense to me. And they came in and they were talking to me, and all I was like, give me my baby. And they kept on talking. I was like, give me my baby. And then they handed him to me, and then I could finally look up at them and like listen to what they said. And they said, we've read your birth preferences. We're going to give you some time alone now. Because I can't remember what I'd written, but I think I've had maybe about like golden hour or something that I wanted us to have time by ourselves. So I was like, okay. So I took off all his clothes because they had put clothes on him, which for me also was quite, maybe traumatizing is the wrong word, but it was very difficult for me that he had clothes on because I needed, it was this like biological need to see what he looked like. And I just like, I needed to undress him. So I took off all his clothes. I like lifted up his hat, looked at his hair, and then I put him skin to skin and just like, you know, and then I could finally like relax. And it was such a, yeah, it was such a strong feeling that I needed to undress him. So after like working in postnatal ward, sometimes I've purposely not dressed babies when maybe the partner or the family will say, "Oh, should we dress him like that?" No, let's wait until the mom comes, because I think like biologically we're supposed to look at our babies when they're born and make sure that they're okay, and that I think is what I was feeling. I'm like, I just need to look at him.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, we stayed in the postnatal ward for, this was a Wednesday. Went home on a Saturday, and it's because I had an infection, so I got IV antibiotics. I was in a lot of pain post post op that I wasn't prepared for. When we were going to the pediatrician checkup. I was sitting with like a puke bag because I thought I was nauseous, but it turned out I actually was in pain. Um, um, I always say that I think I had a little of a disrespectful view of C-sections before I had a C-section myself. Like it was the easy way out, or like it's not really giving birth, or yeah, I think it was a little disrespectful towards how I viewed it. So I think I learned that. And what I also learned is something that I have taken with me into my work is to give pain meds post-op, and that everybody needs a different level, and it shouldn't be there's nothing to be stingy with, because the first 24 hours you're in a lot of pain and it gets better and better, and you usually need less pain medication as it goes. But to get the right pain medication from the beginning means that you can connect to your baby better, you can breastfeed better, you can sleep better, you can move around, but like it makes a huge difference. And it wasn't until I got like IV morphine that the pain came down, but they had to give me the full dose because my pain level was so high. Nobody had told me, like, when you start getting, this is what I always say, when you start getting pain, you let me know, because I can't, when pain is a 10, it's really hard to get it down to a 1. But if it starts going 2, 3, then I can help you.
Mm.
So I wish somebody would have told me that. I also had a really good night shift midwife who was really good at giving me the right pain medication, and she also gave me antibiotics at night. And she didn't give me the routine medication. She gave me what they had used to give before, which worked much better for me. So she also kind of like saved me with that. Um, I didn't get a lot of help with breastfeeding in the hospital, and I had a midwife that wanted to give my son formula because she said, according to her, he smelled like acetone, like saying that he had low blood sugar. And I'm glad that it was my second child that I was like, no, he's fine. He just breastfed on one breast. I'm going to give him the other breast now, like so I could kind of steer her
Yeah.
away from that. But I did have issues with the breastfeeding. It took a little while, but I think I was extremely motivated to make it work because was born through a cesarean. And I was like, I know the benefits of breastfeeding, I know the benefits of vaginal birth. So I was just really important for me to get the breastfeeding to work. And luckily, my doula is also, I don't know if she's a lactation consultant, but she has taken courses in breastfeeding. So she gave me a lot of good tips, which also helped with the breastfeeding as well. What I can say is that my connection to my kids was quite different from the beginning. Uh, I can really feel a difference between the vaginal birth and the cesarean section. That I loved him, but there was a disconnect that I haven't didn't feel with the other two from the beginning, and I think that is because of the I didn't get the oxytocin, I didn't get the hormones that you're supposed to when you give birth, and um, yeah, so that it was just a different experience, and I was in a lot of pain
Mm.
after giving birth, so that also, of course, interferes with everything that you're supposed to feel. So that was I remember like when my doula came to visit, I don't remember how old my son was, but I said like I feel a little disconnected from him, and she's like, but I can see that you care for him, and I'm like, yeah, it's not that. I'm like, the emotions are different. Like I couldn't explain it, and I felt a little shame connected to that as well. So I try to talk about it now because I think it's really important to share that it can be the experience, and it's like it's hormonal. It's not logical, it's not controlled, it's nothing you choose. It's you're supposed to get this flush of oxytocin and this flush of hormones when after birth, and through a C-section you don't. So it's not
Mhm.
strange that the emotion is different. And now like our relationship is great, so it didn't, didn't affect our relationship long term, but it just felt different in the beginning.
Mm. Oh, wow. That's Such a deep story, and just like, oh, and also just like having to switch from like you're having your vaginal birth to like we're going for a C-section, like to wrap your head around that is that it sounds really hard, but also again another huge accomplishment and something that I'm sure taught you so much and gain that respect, like you were saying, for cesareans as well, of like they are really really hard and it's still birth and it's still incredible, but again the people around you, and it's like how you didn't get that level of support, and of course not getting to see your son for that long is gotta be the hardest thing there is. I still am shocked when I'm like, why are we separating them? Why are we still doing this? You know, I just like even in the States, like it wasn't like that. They were never like it was never that they were separated, you know? And so it's just for me, it's like how we haven't come further along. Like I guess it's starting now a little bit, but it's more like it's still a thing that's very real and that we need to talk about more so people can build those expectations and write in their birth plans of like what their ideal C-section looks like, because you don't know what's going to happen, and being prepared for all scenarios. It just goes into that preparation, but people don't think that far. Like it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had the plan of like, if we get separated, please put him with his dad, like skin to skin. So that was good. But I'd never had that. It was not a thought in my mind. Just as I'd never thought of to think of to call the hospital when my waters broke. I also didn't think about a C-section. I mean, like in hindsight, it sounds kind of crazy, but that's really how it was. Like it was just never. I never
Yeah.
thought about it. It just wasn't in my reality at all.
Yeah. But I mean, I've had those clients too where it's like your water broke, you have the option to call, but you also don't need to call. Like, I mean, it's good that they have a heads up about it and that you check your temperature, like these types of things, maybe. But, like, again, if you don't have a doula and you don't work in healthcare, like, there's no way that, I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, you didn't need the healthcare system because you worked in it and you're like, I feel good. I'm not in need of them. So, like, until things start.
My whole plan was to stay home for as long as possible. So I'm like, why do I need to call them to tell them what? My water's broke? Like, why do they need to know that? Like, it's normal. Like, yeah, it was really one of those. Yeah. I mean, and it kind of surprises me sometimes when I worked in the delivery ward and I've been on that end of the phone call when it's like, my water just broke like 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, how? That's the first thing you think to like call the delivery ward? Like, oh, how you feel? Like, you didn't think to wait and see if there are any surges, like give it a little bit of time. Like,
No, you have to know this is happening. I might have
yeah.
to come in really soon.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, okay, thanks for telling us. Like, is there anything like wrong with the what? No, everything's fine. No, but it's just interesting how people like handle things differently and perceive what is important and what is like, I'm fine. I didn't feel like anything was wrong with me. But yeah, the temperature, I mean, I would have never thought of that. If I wouldn't have had my doula, maybe somehow eventually we would have figured it out. But
You were just chilling under your
yeah,
blankets and eating your ice pop. Like it was like
completely normal. I was hot, but I also wanted something cold.
oh my gosh. Wow. Oh, that's incredible. So how was that healing journey? And then also going into your third birth story of like how that plan happened.
Hmm. So I think I thought I had processed this C-section postpartum a lot until I got pregnant with my third. And then it was like everything just came back. So I fully understand women who have like had a traumatic birth and then they get pregnant again and then they're like, no, I can't give birth again. Like I understand how that can just hit you because that's how I did. Like early pregnancy for me with my third was a lot of worrying about because what was the biggest thing with the C-section was not the surgery in itself, it was how they made me feel. I felt like I wasn't
Excuse me.
a part of it. Like I was overrun almost, um, not really respected. I didn't feel included somehow. Like, so that those were my biggest fears at the time. Luckily, I had a lot of because going to nursing school, a lot of people then become midwives. So a lot of the people had become midwives already. So I had some midwives in my life that I could talk to about these things. And one of the midwives is like, "Oh, you're scared of giving birth? Do you need like extra support in that?" I'm like, "No, I'm scared of the medical profession. Like I'm scared of the healthcare workers. I'm like, I trust my body fully. I know that I can give birth." So it wasn't one of those where I needed a birth plan from the hospital. I think I needed to figure out for myself what I needed, I think. And yeah, there was a lot of processing and a lot of fear in the beginning of pregnancy because I just really didn't want to have another C-section. Um, we decided to have the same doula again. Um, my ex thought it was a really good idea because he felt like it was nice that because after my first son was born, the doula was there, Sanna was there helping him, like, and something that I'm going to be grateful for the rest of my life is that she took video and pictures. So the
Mm.
time where I wasn't with them, I have all this video and pictures, and I have video of him putting on the first diaper and the clothes, everything. So when we were united, I could look at the videos and the pictures on my phone, which was great. Um, so my ex also felt like, yeah, it was really good because he doesn't speak Swedish, so it was good to have her. And we knew her already, so we decided to include her into the birth plan as well. Um, and yeah, I worked with her and prepared. Then she had done spinning babies training, which she hadn't previously. Because with my first son, um, the midwife thought he was engaged, but he was always kicking me like under the ribs, so he was quite high up.
Mm.
And so Sanna said, if I would have known what I know now, maybe I would have recommended you to do the exercise. Maybe he needed help to actually get, balance your pelvis out, come lower down. So, and I also got griddle pain very early in pregnancy, like in the first trimester, but with both my boys. So I went to a chiropractor with the third pregnancy, who I recommend everybody go to. All my pregnant people that I meet, Johanna, because she's really good and she's really good with pregnant bodies. So she adjusted me a couple of times. We did spinning babies. So we did what we could to kind of optimize my body for vaginal birth. Um, when I was month before my due date, I was ready to give birth. I was done. I was so done with pregnancy. I was done with, and I knew this was my last child, but I was just like, it's enough now. And I was like, he's probably gonna, or actually we didn't know what we were having. So I'm like, the baby's probably gonna come early. Da, 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 da. I was all like confident in that. And
Always.
people knew the due date, so of course, you should never tell people your due date because the messages start coming like, "Is the baby here yet?" And it's like, "No, the baby's not here yet." So the due date came, it went. The due date was 5 days before my 35th birthday. My 35th birthday came and went because I was like, "Okay, let's have a birthday together." Like I was willing to, I was willing to do that. Like I was willing to do it. And that came and went. And yeah, so the baby was not coming. I felt like I was going to be pregnant forever. Back then, the induction recommendations were different than they are now. So I was recommended to go for a checkup in week 42 plus zero. So I went to a checkup in week 42 plus zero, and then I worked at the postnatal ward. So I went here in Malmö. I went to a checkup, and the doctor said, "We're going to induce you today." And I said, "I don't want to be induced. And I don't want to give birth here." And she's like, "Well, there's nowhere else in Skåne that has availability." I'm like, "I would like to go home, please." But she was like, "Okay, but then we have to check your amniotic fluid." So they did a sonogram, and the midwife that worked that day, she said, "I've never seen anybody leave so fast." When I got the clear, I was like, I had eaten half a salad. I'm like, I'll eat it outside. Like, I do not let them think that they're going to hold me here because I was like, no, I'm not staying for this. So on the way from the hospital, I talked to my friend who worked in Ystad, and she said, "Oh no, she worked. No, I think she worked in Lund at the time, and one of our other like old nursing friends worked in Ystad. So I had talked to them through pregnancy. So my friend was like, call Lund. I called Lund, and the person, the midwife I talked to, she's like, if you started care in Malmö, you have to continue the care in Malmö.
Mm,
And I was like, I know, I don't want to give birth in Malmö. I know too many people. I just want to give birth with people don't know who I am, so I can make my decisions without having to please people and think about what would they think or if they're.
mhm,
So let me just think. They gave me an appointment to come back the next day in Malmö because the midwife was like, I have to give you an appointment to come back the next day. And I was like, I'm not coming back. She's like, no, but I still have to give you this appointment. And I was like, okay. So in the morning the next day, still no signs of really labor starting. I called Easton, and I always say this, from the first phone call until I left, everybody was so nice. So I called them in the morning. They said, "Look, we don't have a place for you now, but if you come after 1 o'clock, you're welcome. We can't say that we will induce you today. It just depends what the checkup is like, but you're welcome to come here." So we planned for that. At that time, I started having, probably a little, not really surges, but like little cramping, a little mucus coming. So I was like, something is going on. But we went on, there was like a blizzard also this day. It's just like, it was right before Easter. It was end of March, but there was this like snowstorm. So we somehow managed to get the last train to Easter, and like I'm there really pregnant, and we have, the baby car seat and all our luggage. And I'd never been there before. So, like, knowing what I know now, I'm like, why did we take the bus? But we then had to go from the train, find a bus, and there was like the snow, it was like lots of snow. And they close down the trains. We get to the hospital, they check everything, say like the amniotic fluid was already low yesterday, we want to induce you today. Do a vaginal exam where the cervix is already dilated about 3 centimeters, which is like normal when you've given birth before. But they had the spotting a little bit, so they were like, something has gone on. But since you've had a previous cesarean, we can't use cytotec. We have to make another plan, and it's the balloon dilation. But since you're already 3 centimeters, that's probably not going to do much. So there was a lot of like discussion going on, what's going to happen next. And I'd put in my birth plan that I didn't want the electrode on the baby's head.
mhm.
And the midwife said, like, look, I need to break the sac, and the easiest way for me is to do it with the electrode to see that there's water. And I was like, can you use the amnio hook? And she's like, I'll try to use the amnio hook, and then we can discuss it. And she used the amnio hook, and she's like, listen, I can't see any water. I don't know if I succeeded. Uh, I would like to use the electrode, and you can choose either leave it on the baby's head or I remove it. But if I remove it, I might have to put another one later on, or you or somebody will. So I decided, I'm like, okay, put it and leave it there. And she placed it. There was like no visible water whatsoever until I a little later got up and started moving. Then there was a little water, but there wasn't really. I mean, I was 42 plus 1 days. There was not that much water.
It was time.
Time. But he didn't think so.
He was comfy.
Other plans. So she put in that, and because of my birth plan, she gave me extra time. And I will like I worked with her, this midwife afterwards, and I said like the way you treated me at the time was like so nice, like that I get to make a decision about the electrode. She's like, look, this like she explained it to me. It was not like now I have to do this because this is how we do it. Like there was none of that. She's like she gave me options, and even though it was something I didn't want, there were still options. So like she's like, this is what I need to do. I recommend it, but you get to choose how we do it. So I felt very seen and very respected. And once they ruptured the membrane, she gave me an hour, then she gave me another hour, then she gave me another hour. So
Mm.
she actually gave me 3 hours because I started getting a little bit surges, and the doula finally came. It took her like an hour and a half to drive in the blizzard. It usually takes like 40 minutes. And then she massaged my feet. She like gave me a warm pack over my bed. Like she was really like doing stuff to try to help the surges. I think she even, I mean, I didn't done everything to start labor before. Like I did acupressure, acupuncture, like all the drinks you can drink and the things you can eat. Like I tried, I tried them all, Alison. It wasn't like I had just sat there and not like I really did. Like if you probably like if you have some, except the primrose oil because that I didn't know about. But
We
like
don't talk about it enough. I know.
but like I didn't know if I would have definitely done that. But so like she had put the seeds in my ear. We did like everything, and I can't remember if no, I think it was still the evening staff, the first midwife. She placed the intrauterine pressure device
Okay.
because they wanted to start the Pitocin drip. And because I had had a previous C-section, they need to monitor everything, right? So here I was like hoping for a natural physiological birth, and I have like I have a drip, I have things on the outside, I have things on the inside. Like at one point I was like, wow, this is
Oh.
not at all what I wanted. Like it was so far from it. Um, but then like there was blood in that catheter, so she had to remove it. They started the Pitocin drip, but they got it to 40. Then I got too many surges, so they put it to 30 mils an hour. And then she had put it on 20 again, and then she had to switch it off because it was just too much. I'm
Mm.
guessing I'm really sensitive to these because that's one of the midwives told me. Like some people are very sensitive to these synthetic hormones because it's just like, and I had so many. So again, similar feeling to my first labor where it was like no breaks.
Mm.
So I asked for, so that was removed, the drip was removed. Uh, so finally, I was there with like surges, and I had the CTG and the electrode on the baby's head. So it was like, okay. I got, um, I wonder if I got, yeah, I think I got sterile water injections because I'd gotten them a lot during pregnancy for griddle pain because I worked with midwives. So I was like, uh, and
Did they,
I got
when they placed them, was it painful?
during the labor.
Yeah. When they placed the sterile water injection.
Um, I don't I don't think they're that bad. Like sometimes when I have pain here, I go to the delivery ward and put them in here because
Uh,
it the pain is so short, but the benefit is so amazing.
uh,
But so I don't like maybe I'm not the best person to ask, but I really like them. Did I
mm.
feel like they like worked really well during labor? No, but I also didn't think that anything worked. Like I got I got acupuncture. Also didn't think it worked. So I asked that the night midwife came, um, Cecilia Magnusson, love her. Shout out to her. Um, she so I said like I was struggling with labor, and I was like, can I just go in the bathtub because in that room there was a bathtub. And
Mm.
she's like, yeah, okay, sure, you can go in the bathtub, like just check how dilated you are. And it was around 11 o'clock, 4 centimeters when I went into the bathtub. And I love to take baths. It's like my happy place. I read in the bathtub. It's my alone time. It's when I feel anxious. What baths are really good for me. So I'll go in the bathtub and I'm like, okay, I think I thought it was going to help more than I felt like it did.
Oh no.
I was like, okay, and then I was like, but it was still, I mean, better than being on land, but it was not like I thought it was going to be like a complete shift, and that's what I've seen working with this, but that was not my experience, and I think it was just because probably the synthetic labor and also it was quite fast moving. The midwife stayed with us more or less the entire time. Um, I can't. I remember her like leaving, but she was there for most of it. And and with that said, like I had a doula, I had my then partner. Like I wasn't alone, but she was always there. So I always think of it as like I had this team of people around me, and they all contributed different things, right? And that is like how I when I have doula clients, that's how I describe it. Like there's a team around you and everybody contributes different things, and that's really what I got. um, I don't I didn't sit in the bathtub for super long, and then my body started pushing, and Cecilia was like, she's like, can I just check you? And she said there's a little lip in front. I'm going to try to hold it back and you try to push. And I was, because she first she was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. It's my body. Like
Oh my
super
God.
logical. I'm like, it's not me. My body and I we're doing different things. Um, and then she held back that lip, and then she was like, "Yeah, can you get on your knees?" So I was on my knees again, which I think also put in my birth preferences that I really felt strong giving birth to my daughter like that. And I was on my knees there in the bathtub, and I remember her saying like, um, "I- I'm thinking that the baby should come between your legs to you." And when she said that, I was like, oh, yeah, I did check twice myself to feel where the baby's head was. Because one time the doula said it, because I said, I can't do this anymore. And she's like, it's not, when you feel that way, you know it's not long to go. So um, I said, I can't do this anymore. And she said to me, oh, but when you feel that way, you know there's not a lot of time left. And I was like, oh, and in my head, I was like, she's so stupid. Why is she saying this to me? But like afterwards, she was right. But like in that moment, I was like, why is she saying that? She knows nothing. So, and then she's like, we check where the baby's head is. So I checked and I could feel the baby's head. And I was like, okay. And then it progressed a little bit and I checked again and I was like, okay, it's further down. And that actually gave me motivation because I was like, okay, it's moving forward. Because you think sometimes it feels like it's never ending. So when Cecilia then said, I'm thinking the baby's going to come here between your legs to you, I was like, what does she mean? Like, I didn't understand that this means the baby's going to be born soon. So yeah, it was quite interesting that like I didn't understand what was going on. I thought that we have hours to go. That's how it felt. So his head was born, and I think I can't remember. I have the video. I can't remember if everything came at the same time, but she hands him to me between my legs, and I just feel like I grab him, and I feel just to that his ball sack in my hand because I didn't know what I was having, right? So I was like, "It's a boy," because I was sure that I was having a girl,
No.
all sure that it was a girl, except my son who said it was a boy. But we were like, this is a girl. We had the name chosen, like everything. It was a girl. We didn't have any boy's name chosen because it's the girl. So I was like, it's a boy. It's a boy. Like I was so surprised. And afterwards, for years, my ex, he would make fun of me. He was like, you didn't want it to be a boy. And I was like, no, I was just shocked because I was so sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the other two, I was right. So this was also it was just, there was so many things about this. I'm like, that, but this doesn't make sense. It was supposed to be a girl. Um, so he cried a little bit, but I didn't notice that. And I could like in the video when looking back, I could hear that he's crying, but in my head he wasn't crying. So I'm like, is he okay? And they're like, yeah, he's fine. Because to me, like a lot of water birth babies are quite calm. So he
Mhm.
came out, he cried a little bit, and then he was fine. So he was just chilling there. And they were getting everything ready. And I remember like touching the umbilical cord going, oh, it's white. And then I had like some and saying like the umbilical cord is white, but nobody heard me because they were busy doing other things, preparing for me to move from the tub to the bed. So when I stand up for them to move me, the placenta comes out. So the midwife just kind of has to catch it. And like for me, there was nowhere where I was like, maybe I should tell them that it's coming, like because I knew I'd pushed, but it was again logic wasn't working. So she caught it, and like we were transferred to the bed, and I was so extremely tired after this birth. Like I was eating the sandwiches and like falling asleep. That's how tired I was. And I think he was born at like 1:40 or something. So from 11 to well, yeah, it was a really fast dilation there. Um, and he was like peeling. His skin was peeling. He was so dry.
He was so ready.
Yeah, he was beyond ready to come out, even though he didn't seem to feel like he was ready. But he's also that's his personality. He takes his time, and he like yeah, he waited till 18 months to walk, even though he could, but he refused to let go. And like he's really that person who does his own thing, um, and like when he wants. So
Mm.
it's been like that since before he was born.
Oh, wow. That's so fast. So then you did get, another vaginal birth and kind of a redemptive experience is how you feel now.
Yeah.
Like you're,
It was a really healing birth for me, and it was a really nice way to end my birth career. And it's not recommended to have a water birth for when you have an induction.
Mhm.
So I actually met Cecilia years later, and I said, I don't know if you remember me. And she's like, no, I remember. And I was like, I just want to thank you for letting me have that water birth. And she said she had decided if the doctor would say anything, that she would say that I started pushing. And when you start pushing, you don't take anybody out of the water. Like you don't want to move them. Because yeah, so she made a conscious decision, and different midwife might have said no when I started pushing, get out
Yeah.
because of the induction. But she was, you know, secure in her profession enough, and trusted the whole situation enough to let me have that experience, and I'm like forever grateful for that. And that also taught me as a midwife how important it is to listen to the person giving birth rather than follow protocol. Like,
Hmm.
because if I think I would have had a completely different, it would still have been a vaginal birth, but I think I would have had a completely different experience if I would have had to stay in the bed, for an example. Uh,
Hmm.
And I've just all felt so respected and seen, and like even afterwards, how she handled I think it was really, it taught me how midwifery can be. I got to see it in a completely different light, and I think, I mean, now I've worked in Easter myself, um, but she showed me that that type of approach is possible, and I think that was a really amazing gift. And I'm also so grateful that I got to thank her for that. And I said, like, because of how you treated me at birth, I now can treat others the same. Like, and she's like, oh, she's like, I got chills. I'm like, no, but this, you don't understand. Like, it really, really changed something for me.
Hmm. Oh, and that you got there in a blizzard. That's also just like so inspirational. Like that you got this whole experience and we're like trekking through this crazy blizzard. That's just what a story and so incredible. And yeah, like that power that she gave you to continue on with your own midwifery journey and what you are giving to clients now all the time, every day, is just it's such a gift when we meet those people and they're put in our paths. And yeah, we get to learn together and grow together. And I just I love hearing birth stories, and yours are incredible because it's again giving birth in different countries and all over the world. I think it's just you learn so much and things that are done so differently, but at the end of the day, how it really matters your people around you, how you're treated, how you're respected, if you're feeling heard. Like it all goes back to these are like the key components of what birth needs to be, and that passion, that true passion of wanting to be there, um, and making this an experience they will never forget, and in the most positive way that you can make it possible during your shift, right? Because it's such a huge, depending who you get, it really is like that. So, oh, wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing all three of those stories.
It was
Um,
long, but
yeah, I was like, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but
no,
just
no, it's fine.
at the end, like, how was your breastfeeding journey now with your third? And yeah, we can end kind of on that note.
My breastfeeding journey with my third was a little easier because it was my third and I had two breastfeeding journeys behind me. He was also my biggest baby, of course, because he stayed in so long. He was almost 4.3 kilos. So
Mm,
the latch is also going to be bigger and so on. And I put in my birth preferences. I'm like, I want to be breastfeeding laying down in the beginning. Please respect this. But we only stayed, he was born at night and we went home the next, so we went home the next evening. So we stayed like less, basically we were there a little bit over 24 hours at the hospital. So we went home because I wanted to go home to the other kids. So a lot of the breastfeeding was done at home. And at this point, I had, I mean, with my second, I had taken a course in breastfeeding and I worked in neonatal care. But for my third, I'd worked in postnatal care as well. So I had so much more knowledge and knew what I needed to do and changed positions and worked on the latch. And so it was way easier than the other two. I did have a little bit of bleeding as well in the beginning, but not as much as the first and not as much as the second. So it got better for each child,
mm,
but a lot less easier. Um, yeah, I think I just want to like track back to the birth. I think it was such a healing experience for me in a way that I think is like really, I'm so grateful that I got that because I think again, if I would have been treated differently, if it was the outcome would have been different, might not have the knowledge that I have today, but also not the understanding of how important those small things are. Just like you said, how um, I always think of this like when I work, I can't control what happens in terms of the outcome. I can't control if somebody starts bleeding or if the baby isn't breathing or if somebody's in pain or whatever, if the epidural only takes on one side. But what I can control is this, how I
mm,
talk to people, how I touch people, how present I am, how I listen, how I inform. And I think that's what that experience in Easter gave me that I didn't have before because that is really like at the core of how they work there and also at the core of how I was treated. Like there was from the doctors that I met, they were also extremely calm. We discussed together of like the approach for induction. It wasn't like they went out and then the midwife came in and told me what's going to happen. They were in the room and said, "We have this option. I don't think that is a good idea because of this and this. But this option, this, da, da, da." Like so, I was always included in my own care, in my what happens to my body, and I think that is so important. So I was thinking that I can't control everything, but I can control like how I make people feel and how the experience can still be good in a traumatic like situation. And usually it has to do with how you were treated, how you feel seen, how you feel heard. And if I didn't get that healing birth, maybe I wouldn't been able to give that to others. Maybe I wouldn't have gone into midwifery because at that point I was also kind of like, I don't feel like I want to go back to school. I don't think I want to become a midwife. I don't know. Like I had gone back and forth a lot. But that was also one of those things where I was like, okay, during that pregnancy. And then I was like, okay, maybe this is what I should be doing. There's
Mm.
so many things that, yeah, it's all aligned.
Yes, it truly is. And you're just such a gift to the birth community in Malmö, Lund, Skåne, that whole region,
Takes
because
one to know one, Alison.
I just haven't been here so long, you know. I just feel like you've been doing this so long here and it's just so needed. And I wish we were so many more that were doing this incredible work because I feel like, yeah, you know, working in the field and working in postpartum, working in labor, I just am like, oh, just the passion. I just love birth so much. And I just think it's just the coolest, most beautiful thing that people do. And like that they should be so celebrated all the time of like, wow, look what you're doing. You're bringing life into this world, you
Yeah.
know. Just I just wish that it was really seen as, and that more people could see like what an accomplishment that can be, and that you can create someone's or help someone create their whole experience in such a positive way by just the way you speak and touch and just sit on the bed next to them or just like, you know, just being human. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, you still have your medical hat on, but you can also connect deeply with someone because these are very vulnerable times in someone's life, and your impact, they'll remember it for life. And this is not just a feeling, it's studied, you know, this is what people remember 50, 60 years after their birth. They won't remember details, but they will remember the people who made them feel good or bad. And I just feel like it's the least we can do, and I just want to empower more and more parents. And I'm just so glad you're on this journey along with me, and that I get to grow and expand with you. So I'm just so
Likewise.
grateful for your time and so grateful for you doing this and being willing to do this, because I just feel like, you know, more birth stories are needed out there, the traumatic, the positive, all of them, because we learn from every single birth, and birth workers alike. You learn something every time because everyone is
Mhm.
so different. So just very, very grateful that you're going to be able to help even more through this. So